I would then like to invite up to the stage our three industry panelists, the CFOs from the fantastic three companies. Jonas Rickberg from Scania, Carl Mellander from Ericsson, and Peter Kinnart from Atlas Copco. So please. Welcome, and thank you for taking your time. And my idea now was actually to let you, I mean, in 30 seconds, say one or two things about yourself. Please, Jonas, if you want to go and say something about your former basketball career.
Oh, thank you for that one. No, but Jonas Rickberg, and I have been a CFO for Scania since April last year, so quite fresh into the role, but been within the company for 18 years. Long timers as everybody in Scania, I would say. Yes, I was a professional basketball long time ago, not important right now.
Peter.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Peter Kinnart. I'm CFO for Atlas Copco since 2 years. And similar to Jonas, part of the furniture of the company, been with Atlas Copco for 30 years.
Very good. Carl.
Hi everyone, I'm Carl Mellander. I'm CFO at Ericsson. Also part of furniture, I guess. I've been CFO for 8 years next year, at which time I will actually step out to do something else, maybe focus on sustainability 100%, who knows.
Let's hope you can come here to SSE and work.
Happy to.
Yeah, good. So for the first, I mean, we have listened now to I must say, fantastic presentation. Thank you so much, Rebecca, Juliane, John, and Annette. And I mean, Rebecca started out with quite depressing news for us all, but it also ended in a nice way with some hope that we can, in a way, also drive the future and dare to act, etc. Juliane brought in the temporal dimension of what we're here for. I mean, also a moral dimension of how do we, so to say, put a number on the future and how we deal with this. And while John then brought in, so to speak, extended the responsibility, talked about the different scopes and how calculations might or might not actually stop development and innovation in companies, in between companies. And Annette lastly talked about the moral ESG radar and the different trade-offs that comes from tools like this, but it may also makes the tools, the moral dimensions more visible. So the first thing that I would like to ask you, the panelists here, you are CFOs, owners of the numbers, so to speak. You are owners of performance measurement in your different companies. What was the, so to speak, the takeaway from you of listening to the academic speakers? If you want to start, Carl.
If I start, first I want to thank you for the acknowledgement of accountants. I will definitely pass that on to our finance team. And being saviors of the universe, or of the world at least, I can look forward to the next salary negotiation round. I'm sure we'll, but then I can tell them they're also, how did you put it, a grain of sand in the wind, so maybe that will calm them down a little bit. But honestly, I also think it's almost like a propaganda show for academia. You know, you're fantastic to listen to, and makes you want to go back sort of into this world and see what we can do. Really impressive, but also very tough messages. Of course, I mean the world is on fire, and what you talked about, Rebecca, on destabilizing the entire climate. Of course, we really need to act, and I think we in companies have an incredibly important role to play. But one other reflection also related to this, because you wanted us to feel grief, I think, which we did, but also practice joy. And it made me think a little bit about risk versus opportunity, because obviously we need to manage the risks, and that's part of the CFO profession as well. But even more so, I think, and that's part of capitalism, to see the opportunities and actually drive forward with innovation and what can we actually do. And I think from our company point of view, technology is a huge enabler, and the opportunity that provides for us as a company and for saving the planet are just immense. So that's just a takeaway from my side.
Yeah. Do you want to go, Peter?
Yeah, I think when I reflect a bit on all I heard, and we are now here after such a formidable panel of academia to comment from the business world. I think in our company, I think we've been working on sustainability for more than 20 years already now. We've integrated in reporting from the very early stages. And I think for us, it's part of how we work and how we operate. Of course, the financial numbers are extremely critical, but we also see sustainability as actually a fantastic opportunity to create value for all stakeholders, but also for the shareholders. And we also believe that if we do not, if we are not on board of this evolution, this crisis that we need to counter, also as a company, it's a matter of to be or not to be. If you're part of this, if you're able to be on the train and make sure that you are creating opportunities out of sustainability for society, then I think the company will not be. And we see fantastic opportunities through technology developments in order to help society to reach those targets and to also help us as a company to reach the targets that we have. So I share, let's say, the optimism at least that there are fantastic opportunities ahead of us, and that sustainability is, of course, a grave risk for the world, but at the same time, something we can use as an opportunity to get better as a company, but also to help society to improve.
Very good, thank you. Jonas, what did you take away from the academic speakers?
No, but a lot, I would say, so thank you for that one. But and also I would say, I mean, Scania, since you all know, we are part of the problem, but we will also like to be part of the solution here. I mean, the transportation in the global, I mean, that counts for around 15%. And if you take only the heavy truck, heavy transportation, that is 5% of the global emission and so on. And I would say what you're into, Rebecca, here, when the ignition of all this for Scania at least was started very much from our former CEO, Henrik Henriksson, that is today leading the H2 Green Steel revolution, I would say. In the fact that, I mean, redefining Scania with a full purpose and really made it clear for the full company and saying, I mean, we need to drive the shift towards a sustainable transport system. That is our purpose right now. And a lot of things has been connected to that. So I mean, coming from an anger and really, okay, we need to do things here together, and then put it really high up on the purpose side to really make it happen in the company. And it has been so many consequences regarding that, I would say. I can talk for hours about that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, Scania is an interesting case in this context, of course. But thank you very much for your reflections. And coming back also to what Annette Mikes was talking about, because she mentioned almost that we are entered into a reimagined capitalism with the regulations and the directives that are coming from the European Union, and she mentioned the EU taxonomy, etc. So I mean, I'm a little bit curious about also how you have experienced this shift, so to speak, because you have also been through a time where the focus has been very much on the shareholder value, and where all, so to speak, focus has been on that narrative, basically, to something quite different that we are in today. So it would be interesting also to listen to you how you have experienced this shift, so to speak. Do you want to go?
I can start, absolutely, because I really don't recognize everything when it comes to the shareholder perspective. Since Scania has very much the perspective of making the Walmart guy very profitable, that has been a little bit of the business model here. So really making the customer profitable, that has been number one, so to say. And by that, as a consequence, of course, getting Scania profitable. And that has come into a lot of implications in how we're looking in and steering the company. So shareholder perspective, that is not what is driving Scania as number 1, 2 priorities, definitely not. It's other things, I would say.
That might work in practice, but never in theory. Oh, sorry.
Let's see. Quite good profitability as well, I would say.
Very good, thanks. Peter, do you want to say something about how you experienced this non-shift?
Yes, what Jonas says resonates 100% with how I feel about our company as well. Of course, there is shareholder value, which is an extremely big part of the targets to deliver to the shareholder. But there are so many aspects that, for me, make it so much more than that. As a company owned through the Wallenberg Foundations, ultimately, there is a tremendous amount of contribution from the money that is generated to basic R&D in Swedish society, which should then further society as a whole. There is the fact that shareholders are, for example, pension funds that pay the pensions of so many citizens in the country and in other parts of the world through the investments in the company. So shareholder value in terms of purely financial returns is a little bit narrow, I think, because there are many more other impacts from the dividends and the profits that are being yielded by the company. And then secondly, I think we don't start from the shareholder perspective when we look at what we do. I think we start from creating customer value. And if you are able to create customer value, we will ultimately deliver shareholder value as well. And also stakeholder value. And then when we look at sustainability, for us, what it means is 99% of our CO2 footprint is basically in a scope 3. And so when we are developing compressors, for example, just to give you an idea, compressors are consuming 10% of the entire industrial power that is generated. So that's quite a big contributor. Sure. So when we look at buying one of those products, 10 to 15% of the product cost is the product cost for the customer, the price. 10 to 15% is the maintenance during the life cycle of the product, and the other 70 to 80% is the energy cost. And so energy cost, you can say, okay, this is pure finance, this is pure money, but at the same time, it goes hand in hand with CO2 emissions, obviously. So if we are able to reduce the energy consumed by our products, we are able to reduce the cost for the customer, total cost of ownership over the life cycle, which is what we are looking for. And ultimately, as a result of that, quite conveniently, I have to admit, also reduce the CO2 emissions for the customer. So I think for us, and that goes through all of the different businesses we do, it's valid for our semiconductor business. We have seen such an enormous amount of opportunities in also many segments that we are present in to actually support our customers in achieving that target of reducing their carbon footprint as one part of the ESG targets, obviously, that we feel that we are very well placed and that we don't feel so much that we are purely in a shareholder value kind of environment, but that it's much broader than that.
But if I just come back to that, because I mean, the European Union, all the regulations, all the reporting that has put on you now, don't you think that is a sign that, I mean, perhaps companies had forgot about things like this before?
Well, that might be well the case, of course, and of course these regulations are also new to us, and we also need to comply with them, and that's quite a big challenge, I have to admit, because I think what they try to capture, and I don't want to discredit all the efforts and the thinking that has gone into creating those guidelines, but when you need to implement them in a company, and then you are going to be benchmarked by the capital markets based on those taxonomy calculations and so forth, I'm not yet so fully convinced that what comes out of all those calculations and measurements will be really objectively usable to benchmark the companies. And I'm a bit concerned, actually, even though we do a lot and we spend enormous amount of time trying to fit in and trying to work out how do we measure and how do we calculate, that ultimately will those measurements really put, let's say, the most sustainable companies on top of the pack, and the ones that are less sustainable, let's say, below those very high performers. With that being said, I don't believe, I mean, it's the only way forward. So let me say that. We cannot say that we need to throw this overboard because it might not be perfect. I think we need to work with it, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done before we get to the same kind of objective benchmarking between companies on financial criteria today.
Very good. Carl, what's your take on this?
Yeah, thank you. No, I'm very much with the two of you as well. I think the most important aspect, I believe, one important aspect here is that if you can get all these forces aligned, you have obviously trade-offs and different stakeholders in different directions. But if you, as we are trying to do, and I hear the same from you, Peter and Jonas, that you embed these things into the business, then you don't have necessarily a trade-off to make. There's not a conflict between what you want to do from a sustainability point of view and what you want to do to make those profits, which I completely agree are not the objective, but it's a means to something else. So this is really for us, I would say, reality also, that we think about sustainability as not a side activity. It's not a staff function somewhere. It's part of the business and part of the proposition to customers. Just like you, our customers are extremely concerned with energy consumption, both for the climate, CO2 footprint, but also for the cost aspect. And again, you get alignment between a financial drive, cost driver, and climate in this case. Then you really get traction. We are investing a lot in that for that reason. So we have our own Ericsson silicon, for example. You cut power consumption by 50%. And 5G, which is our big engine that we're building globally at the moment, is the most energy efficient generation of mobile network so far. And it doesn't come easily, of course. It's the fruit of, in our case, about $4 billion of R&D every year. And now we're pretty proud of that if we can be better than anyone else in delivering energy efficient solutions, it's going to help the environment. And, I mean, 200 times increase of data traffic, for example, in the networks delivered with less energy. That's pretty good. But we're not stopping there, of course. We're continuing this.
Oh, and that's substantial.
Alignment of objectives, that's what I'm trying to say.
No, I mean, what your point is, I mean, all of you, in a way, I mean, trying to integrate this into the core business. And that's also the reason why you are here, so to speak, representing very core finance function in your companies.
I believe in argue that, I mean, we're putting the Scania on stake on this journey. I mean, you can imagine, BEV, actually battery electric vehicles, if we are betting wrong there, Scania will not exist. So of course, we are heavy invested there. I mean, more than 50% of our R&D budget are into that area. And there, of course, you know, there's a lot of other alternatives as well there, but we are really betting on that. So Scania will not exist if that turn out to be a different journey, I would say. Of course, we are betting on other things as well, but not that heavy, I would say.
But in a way now, I mean, we could also say when it comes to Scania that in a way you are helped by regulation, you are forced to do this in a way. This is not something that you can choose not to do. So would that help you? I mean, compared to Nokia, compared to Kodak Eastman, that was more of a market situation. Now you are actually in a regulatory situation.
As well, coming back to what we discussed here, I mean, that is part of our business model to really make sure that our customers are the ones that are profitable in this, as we said, very thin margin operation that truck industry is. For the operators and so on. And so this is, I mean, we can feel a lot of questions, of course, and demand from customer to really have a green agenda here. And that, of course, we are delivering on very much into the battery electric vehicles going forward here.
One thing that I thought of is also, I mean, the whole idea with the sustainable finance logic is that this is going to create better information for investors that will make them, so to speak, allocate assets away from brown assets to green investments. And I would like to hear you, because that's also the other side of the coins with reporting, so to speak, what you provide to the market. Would be interesting to listen to how you experience the interaction with capital market actors and how well do they actually take in this information and ask relevant questions about your sustainability transformations. So please, Carl.
Yeah, if I start, actually, I think we see employees really buying into this because it gives purpose. We see our long-term shareholders really backing this whole notion, absolutely. And even credit institutes, they are there, and we have several dialogues with them with funding to our company based on sustainability targets and so on. But the group that I find a bit absent actually here, that's the normal, the sort of the investor community. Many of the funds that talk about these things and talk about requirements, in the 600 investor relation meetings we have per year, we almost never get the question about this. And I think maybe it's because we are not seen as a big polluter. But again, back to the risk versus opportunity side, I think there's tremendous opportunity, also business opportunity, but very little interest, actually, in spite of sending CEO letters to everyone and having high standards on paper. So there, I would hope for a bit more engagement from the financial community, the investor community, capital markets, from that point of view.
Interesting. Do you want to add something, Peter, to this?
This resonates 100% with what I experience in the meetings as well. Of course, the analysts and investors, say long-term investors, and we have quite a lot of those, fortunately, I would say, are really into this because they want to buy and hold for many, many years to come. So they want to have, of course, a kind of future-proof investment, and they want to understand where we are on the agenda, what we are doing to make sure that we are sustainable. I think the employees are absolutely an important category to mention here. As a more sustainable company, you are more attractive to employees, and it is not easy to find talents nowadays, as we all know. So I think companies that have a purpose and that are really committed to that and that don't only talk the walk but also walk the talk are definitely much more eligible, especially by younger generations, to find employment within our organization. But then when we talk to analysts, usually it is a lot about the financials and the products and what is in the pipeline. And then from time to time, I think there is a bit more increased attention to specific topics when something happens with one company or the other, that all of a sudden the eyes are turned towards that particular topic, and then as a result of that you get more questions on that, but it tends to be very topical, very limited in time, and not so structural, I would say.
No, interesting. So Jonas, what's your, so to speak, your interfacing, you're part of the Traton group, of course, but how is this tripled down from your perspective?
But here I would say Scania is really inspiring Traton group in this matter, I would say, in order to really have the right measures and so on. And in our export community, of course, we are talking about this on a regular basis, quarterly, I would say. You all know that we are part of the science-based targets. That has supported Scania enormously, even if we said, okay, it was averages, but that has given enormous input to what we are deciding to do. Small things as well. If we are going to correct something in our science-based target that we have for 2025, it's going to be 20% down versus the 2015 level. And we are on the level, are we fine-tuning here? Maybe we can offer different type of tires in order to get the wheel spinning a little bit less, and by that also having less CO2 outcome, of course. And we are on that level, and of course we would like to make business of this, so we're not giving these tires for free. So, and there's a lot of customer demand of this as well when we are talking about it. So we are tracking every quarter to see, are we aligned, and making sure that we have a geographical mixes as well. And that is not only on the export, it's part of the board of directors follow-up for Scania each and every quarter. So very much deep invested.
So in that case, so these measures really also drive innovation for you, as you said.
Exactly.
Interesting. But I was also thinking about, the interaction with the investors and financial analysts. It's also a two-way, so to speak, way. Dialogue and interaction. Do you try to teach them and educate them on these things, since the questions are not coming from them, obviously, which is a little bit surprising.
Yes, I would say yes, we do. And I mean, so Ericsson belongs to what you could call ICT, or information and communications technology sector. And we usually talk about some of the statistics there, that this sector stands for 1.4% of emissions, but can influence 15% at least of global emissions, because it's an enabler for other things, for digitalization and for decarbonization. And sometimes that maybe is overlooked a little bit, so we try to educate around this, that also, of course, government and public policy and so on, I mean, see digitalization as a fantastic enabler here for all kinds of other industries as well, to dematerialize, for example. And we have this great example on music industry, for example, which used to be rather heavy in logistics, and you know, the records were produced and sent and print, you know, all of these things. Of course, completely revolutionized. First digitalized, but doing the same thing. You go to CDs and so on. But the next step in digitalization is just to remove all of that. And now everyone has Spotify, and you have 100 million more better access to music, but you know, it doesn't consume anything except maybe the energy in data centers. No. So this kind of thing, I mean, it's an enabler for other industries. So we have lots of projects there with different sectors, in transportation, for example, in energy with smart grids. Fairly easy investments, actually, that can make renewable energy really work in a complex energy network, for example. But you know, it takes technology.
And they don't, I mean, exactly. I mean, it takes time to educate people. We know that. Yes, of course. Okay. At least 5 years. Yes. Hopefully more. Yes. Thank you very much. Let's move over to the third, so to speak, discussion block. And I want to come back and push you a little bit about the trade-offs that Annette also talked about. And because I'm sure that also, even if everything is, I mean, there are no trade-offs, as you say, when I listen to you sometimes. But I do know that, of course, you meet challenges in these times. And I would like you to share also with the audience here what kind of, I mean, challenges, call it challenges, if not trade-offs, that you have when it comes to the new time, or I mean, meeting sustainability goals, and also connected to performance measures. Do you want to start, Peter? Yes.
Yeah, sure. We are also part of the science-based targets, which we think is a very good initiative, because it kind of tries to make it more objective and comparable, in a sense, by a firm measurement. Whether the measurement is perfect, I don't know, but at least I think
it never is.
It is more comparable. It becomes more accurate than it was ever before. But in that context, of course, we are trying to continuously reduce the energy consumption of our products, so our customers have lower cost and lower CO2 emissions. Fantastic. But at the same time, the need for our products increases in the market due to all kinds of new applications that come up. And that comes back a little bit to your example of you know, the reduced emissions at the autostrada. But if you have 20 times more cars going through it, in the end, you don't really reduce the carbon emissions. And that's, of course, a bit of a dilemma between increasing the amounts of products that you're able to put into the market, while even though they may be the most energy efficient products that we put in the market, of course, putting more of them in the market actually increases CO2 emissions. And that also makes us discuss a little bit more internally. Today we have science-based targets, Scope 1 to Scope 3, and they are part of our incentives as well. So they are related to the incentives in the company. But Scope 4 is also relevant in the sense that even though I mean, if a customer needs a product to do something, then we will be there to provide it to the customer, but it might at least avoid to create more emissions by using our product compared to other products, or by using maybe competitor products. So that's at least a discussion we have. We have not put it in place because we also don't believe that you know, let's move to Scope 4, then we can communicate to the outside world that now we have found the new solution to communicate in a more positive way. But it's at least a debate that we have about, well, selling more also means more emissions. how do we bring that in line with our science-based targets? And our science-based targets are absolute numbers.
Yeah.
So that makes that target.
So it's not a baseline 2019 or something. It's
exactly.
absolute.
Yeah, it's based on a baseline, but it's an absolute number and an absolute reduction we need to achieve. So that of course puts pressure on that target.
So how will you work around? Because that's a real trade-off, of course. How do you work around that one?
Yeah,
the more you sell, the more emission.
Yes, of course, but then continue to work on even lower emission products, finding other applications. For example, if we look at, again, generating compressed air, if you put in 100 kilowatt, 90 kilowatt goes out in heat. So only 10% is actually used, ultimately, if you measure it, to generate the end product. Maybe we can do something with that other 90 kilowatt that is going to waste. So if we can capture that through energy recovery, we can make it available to the customer for other types of processes, then of course we are able to reduce more substantially than we would otherwise.
Good, thank you very much. Do you want to go, Carl?
Yeah, maybe different, entirely different challenge. I agree with everything you said, but maybe a more internal challenge, which has to do with the regulatory requirements, the reporting requirements, because they have changed over time, and it consumes resources, of course. And I think we just have to overcome that and realize that this is actually good. We provide transparency, but not only that, have those reporting requirements actually help us to do things in turn, not just report, but really take the proper action. And now the next big thing is the double materiality analysis that we will embark on now. And we have really said that in our executive team as well, that this is not another reporting exercise. Let's do the analysis of what impact do we have in our business, and what's the impact on us, on climate, society, people, and so on, and what are the financial impacts of that, and really do this analysis, go through it properly, and understand much better how we impact, what we impact, and so on. So I think we need to sort of embrace this and take it to
embrace reporting. But reporting sounds very much often as a compliance exercise. Exactly. But it can start with that, perhaps. But have you realized that, I mean, once you start to work with the compliance, you also see things in a different way and come up with ideas, etc.?
Exactly the point, and that's where we need to get over the hump of seeing it as a check the box exercise into this is real, and it's helping.
Good. And Jonas, you are facing, of course, challenges.
Of course, no, but me and Peter are more into the same business here when it comes to. I mean, our footprint is definitely on our customer side even more. So we are doing heavy trade-offs every day, I would say, more or less, due to the fact that, I mean, we are required to invest heavily for what is next generation of legislation for Euro 7, the emission standard for that, versus putting even more money on e-mobility, BEV journey, and so on. And of course, we would like to see definitely harder regulation or even taxes on carbon dioxide, of course, because that will push the journey into battery electric even faster. So that we are doing trade-offs all the time. And coming back then to the science-based target, I mean, that is the average part of things and so on. And with the buses, and there is long bus trains that you can sell in different parts of the world, mainly Latin America, big cities like Bogota and Santiago and all these. We are punished if we are selling them due to the measurement of the science-based target, due to that we are evaluated on the CO2 per kilometers. And we all know that is wrong, of course. So we sell it and do a lot of things for the bus market in these cities due to the fact that it's better for the society. People don't go with cars and they go with long buses instead of everything else and so on. So that we are doing trade-offs and then going back to the purpose of Scania and driving the shift there. So, I mean, there is trade-offs all the time that we are taking actions on and so on. And also, I would say, I mean, heavily invested in a new powertrain recently that is the most efficient in the world. So maybe Walmart could be interested in that as well, I would say, to make even better sustainability journey. And of course, that was a huge investment in Södertälje for a foundry, the most modern on earth, I would say. But that was, of course, with the spirit of, we know that if we are having this old technology and applying that on biogas, then we are already right now neutral. So that is an intermediate step into battery electric vehicles that is for sure taking away all the emissions at once. And then of course it's 8% on top of that reduction of fuel consumption already from start. So that was a big trade-off, of course, with the purpose and knowing that there will be a good usage of that around the globe.
That in the short term will take down top line from you. But it's also, I mean, Scania is so interesting from that perspective that you're actually running two separate businesses right now in one way. I mean, you have the old one and you have the new one that will eventually take over. So when will you, what's the plan? When will you actually make the shift?
Now we are doing that every day and every month, I would say. And the target is then for 2030, if I remember right, that we should have 50% of all the sales should be battery electric vehicles. And then, of course, we are super depending on the society, how that is moving with the grid system and charging system and everything like that. But there's a lot of things we can do already right now with using biogas, for example, as I was into. So, yeah.
Yeah, good.
We are talking more about the future, of course, when it comes to the battery electric vehicles, and less about the old technology, definitely.
Yeah, Peter, yes.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on compliance, as you mentioned it, because compliance is just, of course, we need to comply. It's going to be part of our annual reports and so forth and so on. But for us, at least, I think, and I probably kicking in an open door when I say it, but sustainability is not an accounting topic. It is one accounting topic, but it is not only an accounting topic by any means. And if sustainability is not embedded in every single function in the organization, then it will never fly, in my opinion, in our opinion. So it needs to be part of R&D. When you think about circularity, if you think about chemicals being used, impact on the environment, on biodiversity, etc., it has to be embedded in what materials do you use, where do you source them from, how are these suppliers, getting these materials out of the soil if it's about raw materials, how do you put them together in your own factories? Can you do it can you improve your manufacturing processes in order to reduce your footprint? Can you improve the serviceability of those products so they get a longer life ultimately, and you can use them for a longer period rather than replacing them by something new, making again use of new materials, and of course recyclability in the very end, which is, and I think, I'm not saying that we're there at all. I think in our company we are working on all of these areas, and in some we are a little bit further, and in some we are still at the very early stages. But at least I think it needs to be part of the entire organization, the entire ecosystem. And then of course there's reporting, and ultimately the reporting needs to be exactly what we do in finance. In finance, what we try to do is often how I try to explain it to our business organization is we try to present you a mirror of what you are doing every single day. And I hope that we are able to do this in a way, so that should be our expertise at least, that we do it in a way that when they see in the mirror, that they actually recognize the face they see. And that's, I think, what we need to achieve when we talk about sustainability as well, that when we are able to provide the data in a good format, a good scorecard to our business organization, whatever they may be, R&D, manufacturing, sales, that they actually recognize themselves in the image that we give back to them based on what they have actually done throughout the journey.
But that's good. I mean, of course, I totally agree. Sustainability is not an accounting issue as such, but as you say, accounting can be a representation of sustainability, and it can also be an engine, in John Morrison's word. And if you put up a mirror, so to speak, and you don't like what you see, you try to change it. And of course, this is also what we see all the time. This is a very good also step to the last thing for this panel, and I would like you now to think and reflect a little bit upon what will happen, so to speak, in a further reimagined capitalism. What kind of things for the future do you see? what's critical for you to continue the transformation that you are ongoing, so to speak? What's a wish list for you in moving forward as a CFO and as a company? You were touching upon it about stricter, clearer, about the regulations.
Yeah, that is one part, of course, and the big challenge for Scania right now is, of course, imagine if we are then 100% electric, selling 100% electrical vehicles. Today, if you look into our footprint, we can see that 96% of all our emission comes from our customer side, but that coin will flip totally when we are selling 100% electrical vehicles, and assuming then that they will be green charged. Because then we need to understand that looking into the product itself, that will be the main pollution side. So that is also why we also recently put up a lot, we call it for hotspots areas, actually then making sure that the product will be even more green when we are selling battery electric vehicles and so on. Due to the fact that we need green steel, we need green batteries with Northrop at the moment, and H2 Steel, and others as well, I would say. As well as there is aluminium and iron, of course. These areas we are focusing 100% to be neutral on 2030, when we are really ramping up the battery electric vehicles and so on. And that is our response then to making sure that it's not making sure that it's not only the customer side, then they are green. Because if they are driving electrical vehicles with green charge energy, then it's only the product side left that we are focusing right now, together with circularity, of course, regarding that.
Thanks. Thank you. 50% 2030?
Yes.
And today?
Lower.
Lower. Good. That's a good answer.
Yeah, I mean, in our company, we have actually already gone through the entire electrification over many decades ago, from pneumatic tools and towards electric tools, electric compressors, electric vacuum pumps. The one area where we are still working on it right now, but with very good success, I would say, is on the construction side, where you have a lot of these diesel-driven portable compressors that you hear on the side of the street with these noisy breakers, or of course diesel generators. It doesn't make sense to have an electric motor powering a generator. That doesn't work. But there we are. We have introduced actually an electrically, not cordless, but corded portable compressor. We have now relaunched a battery-driven portable compressor. And so we are also in that area gaining traction. We have battery packs rather than generators that we can put on a construction site where you have no power, potentially somewhere in the middle of nowhere. So those are things that I think will contribute. Then maybe from the reporting and financial perspective, what I would like to see, what the vision is that ultimately we will have sustainability reporting as natural as financial reporting. And that we will have more debate about the performance on our sustainability KPIs with our investors, just like we have questions on what is the outlook for the next quarter and what is the outlook for next year. When it comes to financial KPIs, will you deliver on your return on capital employed? Will you deliver on your growth numbers? But will you also deliver on your sustainability KPIs? I think that would at least be our vision of where we hope things will evolve into.
Good, good. Thank you very much. And Carl?
Thanks, Peter. A couple of things for the future. It's for sure so that we will continue to invest like never before, of course. I mean, we'll continue to invest in technology, and we are, as a company, embarking more on a second leg, you could say, strategically, which has to do with enterprises and solving their needs as well, based on 5G, and before we know it, it's probably 6G as well. And we will, of course, continue with that. What I think in finance, because if we talk about finance now, we are all CFOs here and many finance people in the audience probably. I think we have to step up a lot, because the reporting is one thing, but also business partnering, helping decision makers with insights and so on, even more than we do now. I think that's a next step there. When it comes to capital markets, again, I would like to see much more activism actually, and active dialogue with many of these funds, not just words. And then policy, several of you talked about policy and government and maybe subsidies. That's the next thing that I would hope also that regulators and so on see more digitalization as a vehicle, as an enabler. And one recent example in one European country where you get subsidies for building a new oil terminal, but if you want to invest in a 5G network, you have to pay 6 billion euro to even get a license to do it. Of course, that hampers investment in that, and then you kind of miss the opportunity to get into this gigantic innovation platform that 5G could be. I know I'm speaking now for sounds like I'm trying to sell something, but
I mean, I'm with you.
Thank you. At least two then. Okay, good. So that's what I would hope for the future, at least. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thanks all. Let's see now. We have time for a question, one or two questions.
I'll borrow one of your microphones so we can for the audience and
please, there is 1, 2. Annette here. Let's start with Annette. Yes.
Just a quick question. How should we think about products and industries that we actually don't need in a decarbonized, ESG improved world?
I think that's, I mean, that therein lies a lot of the answer. Exactly that, you know, if we can solve things digitally and not even produce material to accomplish whatever it is we want to do. I took the example of the music industry. You can take maybe the cameras, just another sort of close to home example where now the smartphone is doing the camera work as well. You don't need to manufacture, ship, and so on, any camera equipment anymore, basically. So I mean, more and more of that, I think we will see. Then you get into, of course, augmented reality as well, which makes it possible not to travel at all, for example, but you can still experience the things. Or if you are a maintenance person, you can get all the information that you need without actually having to travel and go there and so on. So I mean, this is happening in every sector now, I think, taking the material out of the equation.
Good. Let's see, there were one. Yeah, please.
So my question is specifically regarding the regulations surrounding these carbon emissions. For example, in Sweden, you had the carbon tax in the early 1990s, I believe. And so my question for you is specific to you as financial executives compared to, for example, you were head of sustainability. My question is, would you have the same response to these carbon emissions if these regulations weren't in place? And if the answer to your question is no, then do you believe that these regulations should be stricter, if you understand my question?
I'll try to answer that. I mean, obviously, when there is a government that's imposing a tax on a certain thing, it will trigger immediately the attention of the CFOs and all the financial community. That is, that is obvious, that I can't deny. And that it, of course, then potentially triggers more actions within the company to say, how can we avoid this tax? How can we bring it down by being more forward-leaning? So in that sense, yes, of course, it helps to create attention, just like the IRA in the US will help to create investments. That being said, for example, we ourselves have done recently decided for quite a significant investment in our terms, at least, above $100 million in new facilities in the United States. We are able to benefit from, in this case, the CHIPS Act, but it doesn't necessarily trigger the decision to actually make the investment. We would have made the investment regardless, but we will not, of course, let the opportunity go waste if there is an opportunity to take a benefit from some of these subsidies, for example. But it doesn't necessarily trigger the investment as such. It's still a business decision that goes behind it. Then when it comes to okay, carbon tax will help, it will trigger our attention. At the same time, as a company, we are not, it's not some kind of virtual being that operates independent of everything else. The company is consisting of, in our case, 55,000 people globally, who all have, who all want to work with us, I hope, and I think. And as a result of that, what the company wants to do is also reflecting to a large extent what is living in society, and what all the people that are part of our organization are standing for. If they don't believe in the purpose we have, they will not stay with us, they will look for other opportunities, and there are other companies out there that might have a stronger purpose than we have. So in that sense, I think the policy, or let's say the strategy of a company, is of course driven by many different things, and it's driven by shareholder value, etc., but also by let's say the opinions and what lives in society at large, in terms of what are the key priorities for a company if you want to attract the right people.
Good, thank you. Mattia, please.
Mattia Bianchi, faculty at this school. One voice that perhaps is missing this afternoon is that of startups and new ventures, because the private sector needs to be a driving force towards sustainability, but it doesn't have to be the industry leaders. And I'm not saying this to tease you, but just because architectural innovation has been mentioned a few times, and here we have the mind behind it, and it's ultimately a theory of disruption, because, you know, incumbents, leaders are organized around old architectures. The way information flows in the organization is really reflecting their existing products and services. So this might create sclerosis and inability to respond to new architecture. So my question to you is, how do you work with startups in relation to sustainable innovations, whether you work internally or also with external partnerships? Thank you.
Good question. I actually come from a meeting just straight before this, actually, talking about that within Scania, because we are heavily investing also in startups as well, both internally as well as together with other partners. And there is, of course, really interesting opportunities when we look into platform companies. How to optimize even more when it comes to transportation, that we are investing in heavily, and also being close to things. And also, I would say, very close to circularity on material side, of course, to really find opportunities there. So we cannot do this by ourselves, definitely. But we are not, you know, over-invested either. So we are doing a lot of things together with other partners, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same here actually. I think we need to challenge ourselves and bring in the new perspectives, and we have some really successful partnerships also with startup companies. One which is a recent, I would say, success story with a startup. It has to do with energy, smart grids. It's a case now with 1.5 million square meters in Sweden and Finland of space, and together with the startup we have created a way to reduce energy 7% pretty quickly. It's also powered by AI, so machine learning algorithms understanding how the buildings behave, how temperatures go up and down, what people do, and so on. And by that fairly small investment, actually, you can reduce by 7%. And imagine that globally, that would take us a long way. But it's a good example of startup collaboration with an old giant like us.
I actually have a selling proposal to you. Because in Scania we have a company that is called Gaia that we have invested by ourselves and started. And that is very much connected to measuring carbon dioxide within the server halls. And making that pretty transparent. And of course there's a lot of interest into that. And here's an opportunity.
Very good, very good. You know what they say? Somewhere in the world it's 5 o'clock. But actually it's 5 o'clock here. So 5 minutes ago it was 1 o'clock, and it's time to conclude this panel. And also we're moving also to the conclusion of this forum. I just want to start with a big thank you to all of you, 3 of you, to come here and share your insights and experience.